To become certified mages, students from various magic academies must take an exam administered by the Ministry of Magic. The exam is so notoriously difficult that only 1% of candidates are expected to pass. Our protagonist has barely entered the building when his classmates immediately begin mocking him. However, they have no idea what is about to happen. Not only does Koki pass the first test, but during the second test, he ends up facing one of the heroes, an SSS rank mage who looks down on everyone around him. But the hero is left completely shocked when his rare summoned beast suddenly switches masters and becomes Kuki's familiar. The reason is simple. Kuki has returned to the past with his memories intact and has already mastered an overpowered form of magic. Now, he may be the only person capable of saving the world from destruction. We begin the story by going back to the past. The great sage delivers a shocking prophecy that the world will come to an end in 5 years. Since the sage's unique skill allows him to see the future, there is no reason to doubt his words. However, the sage tells everyone not to panic. According to his vision, 7 heroes will rise to protect humanity from its doom. The people chosen for this great mission are no ordinary individuals. They are regarded as the strongest humans and the greatest S-class mages in history. With such an overwhelming lineup, everyone believes that humanity's future is secure. That was 5 years ago. Now the story skips to the present. The very day the prophecy foretold as the end of the world. Seeing the excited crowds gathered everywhere, our protagonist can only sigh inwardly. Ikuta Koki, now 22 years old, believes today could truly be the end of the world. Yet people are treating it like some grand festival. The reason is the 7 heroes. Speaking of them, the young woman displayed on the giant screen is revealed to be Miki Mirai. She is none other than our protagonist's younger sister and a prodigy serving under the 7th strongest hero. Her future is incredibly bright. She is already a certified mage and even works for the Ministry of Magic. Seeing her reminds Kuki of his days back at the academy. Back then, he was basically Toji, minus the strength. Since he possessed no magic, everyone mocked him as the academy's magicless idiot. Everyone except his sister. She always believed he would become someone great as long as he never gave up. Back in the present, Koki quietly goes about his job. Suddenly, someone calls out to him, the trash without magic. The 2 men are none other than the same bullies from his academy days. Naturally, they waste no time mocking him, laughing about how the so-called trash of their academy literally ends up picking up trash for a living. Koki can only grit his teeth and endure the humiliation because there is nothing he can do. Just then, a deafening crash echoes throughout the city. As foretold, the end of the world has finally arrived. Monsters begin pouring out from another world. At the same time, the 7 heroes make their grand appearance. The crowd erupts with excitement, especially the girls. One of the heroes confidently declares that this battle will be a breeze, claiming they will finish everything in a flash. Meanwhile, the second hero charges ahead and launches the first attack. Everyone watches the battle through the live broadcast. Unfortunately, his attack does absolutely nothing to the monster. Then he suddenly disappears. A moment later, his severed body falls lifelessly to the ground. The once cheering crowd freezes in shock and disbelief. The strongest heroes humanity has to offer are being slaughtered. Some are already dead, while the others have completely lost the will to fight. No one can believe what they are witnessing. Kuki also stares at the screen in complete shock, unable to understand what is happening. Then he suddenly remembers his sister. She is currently assisting the Ministry of Magic. Without hesitation, he rushes to find her. Fortunately, he spots her alongside the 7th hero. She reports that their magic attacks are completely ineffective and suggests retreating. However, the man calmly claims he has a better idea. The moment the monster attacks them, Miki realizes the horrifying truth. He intends to use her as bait. Kuki arrives just in time to witness everything unfold. Shocked and horrified, he shouted at the man, calling him a bastard. The 7th hero shamelessly runs away, claiming that as one of humanity's saviors, his life is far more valuable than that of a single girl. Ignoring everything else, Koki rushes toward his sister. Despite having no magic, he places himself between the monster and Miki. Seeing her brother standing there, Miki realizes he has never changed. He is still the same kind-hearted person he has always been. As the monster closes in, Koki silently prays to whatever higher power might be listening. He does not ask for anything. All he wishes for is the strength to protect his sister. As if responding to his prayer, a glowing rune suddenly appears on his wrist. Miki's eyes widen in disbelief. The instant his power awakens, the monster freezes in place. Koki has no idea what just happened. With her remaining strength, Miki explains that he has finally awakened his magic. Unlike everyone else, including the 7 saviors, his magic is the only one capable of affecting the monsters. When she says she is entrusting everything to him, Koki cannot understand what she means. At the same time, he feels something strange stirring deep within his body. Before he can ask any questions, Miki pulls out a magical book she received from the Ministry of Magic. She activates its spell. The moment the magic is complete, Ikuta Koki opens his eyes. To his astonishment, he found himself back in time when he was still a student attending the Magic Academy. Even more shocking, It is the very same day the great sage first made his prophecy about the end of the world. Checking his phone, Koki confirms what he already suspects. He has truly been sent 5 years back into the past. Looking around, he sees everyone talking excitedly about the great sage's prophecy. That alone confirms his suspicion. Judging by the excitement on everyone's faces, not a single person remembers what happened on that fateful day. After all, that day was literally the end of the world, just as the great sage had foretold. As he is processing everything, his phone suddenly rings. It is his mother. The moment he answers, he is shocked to hear that his sister, Miki, has suddenly collapsed. Later, Koki rushes to her hospital room. His mother lets out a small sigh of relief when she sees him. She explains that there is nothing physically wrong with Miki. Even the doctors cannot understand what is happening to her. Hearing that, Koki begins to wonder if this is connected to what she did 5 years ago. Although it is only a theory, he knows there is only one place where he can find the answer. The next scene takes us to his old school. Inside the library, Koki remembers that in his previous life, he practically lived there. Because of that, he recalls reading a particular book. After searching through the shelves, he finally finds exactly what he is looking for. As he reads its contents, he learns the complete truth. Miki used a forbidden spell known as regression magic. The spell can only be cast on a single person, allowing them to keep both their memories and powers after traveling back in time. However, the price is cruel. The caster falls into an eternal sleep. While Koki is lost in thought, his former bullies enter the library, loudly talking about the 7 heroes. One of them sighs, wishing he could become the strongest mage and eventually a hero, so he could have all the girls he wanted. His green-haired friend, Kusano, agrees, commenting that the 7th hero is incredibly popular with girls and even dominates social media. Listening to them, Koki realizes that people still believe the 7 heroes are humanity's greatest hope, but he knows the truth. On the day the world ended, they were completely powerless. If nothing changes, history will simply repeat itself. He cannot allow his sister's sacrifice to be in vain. Now, he is the only one capable of preventing the end of the world. At that moment, his bullies finally notice him. One of them sneers, calling him the magic-obsessed freak. Koki calmly recognizes him as Iwashita. Meanwhile, the green-haired Kusano snatches the book from Koki's hands, mocking him for reading books despite having no magic and absolutely no mana. The group drags him outside. After aiding his rune, Iwashita says they should give Koki a little guidance since he loves magic so much. Normally, Koki would have been terrified. The moment Iwashita activates his magic, the only thing Koki can do is close his eyes and brace himself for the inevitable. However, nothing happens. When he opens his eyes, he sees Iwashita staring at him in complete disbelief. His magic and even his skill has failed to work. Normally, no one can remain standing after being hit by his power. Seeing his friend's magic fail, Kusano immediately steps in. Activating his own rune, he sends countless vines rushing toward Koki. To his shock, Koki effortlessly dodges every single one as if they were moving in slow motion. At that moment, Koki remembers something. Someone with overwhelmingly greater mana can completely resist the abilities of someone far weaker. Furthermore, as a person's mana increases, their physical abilities naturally improve as well. There is no denying it anymore. He possesses mana now, and these 2 idiots are pathetically weak compared to him. That was because he had inherited Miki's mana when she cast regression magic. Since she was a prodigy trained by one of the heroes, the outcome was obvious. With that realization, Koki decides to activate his own rune. Iwashita and Kusano stare at him in complete disbelief. They repeatedly ask him when he awakened his magic. Koki ignores their panicked shouting. Right now, he is far more interested in discovering what his own ability is. At that moment, a system voice echoed in his head, announcing that the magic skills Gravity Manipulation and Thorn Control had been acquired. The next instant, the world around him disappears. He finds himself standing inside what appears to be an enormous yet completely empty library. Sure enough, the mysterious voice takes human form before him. The figure introduces herself as Koki's librarian. With a cheerful smile, she explains that this library itself is Koki's unique magical skill. Confused, he asks his librarian how this is his magical skill. She explains that the space is a library, making him wonder aloud why there are only 2 books. Since this is obviously the first time Ikuta Koki has accessed the space, she decides to explain. The books are acquired skills which take the form of books. Judging by the runes and the color of each book, he can tell which magical skill belongs to whom. The librarian congratulates him for copying and acquiring the skills of his 2 bullies. Both skills are excellent. Iwashita's magical skill is an earth attribute ability that allows him to manipulate gravity, while Kasuna possesses a wood attribute skill. Our protagonist is shocked when he learns from her that he can actually use the skills he acquires once he finishes reading their books, and to acquire a magical skill in the first place. All he needs to do is observe someone using it. But the best part of her explanation is that this is actually his mental space. Time flows differently here, meaning he can read to his heart's content. He doesn't quite understand what she means, so she bluntly explains that, right now, time in the real world has completely stopped. The librarian assumes that since her master is young, he will naturally hate the idea of reading books. After all, Why bother reading when AI can speedrun the entire process? She hasn't even finished speaking when our protagonist suddenly grabs a seat. Of course, she is taken aback by his reaction. Nonetheless, she smiles. Hours later, our protagonist thinks to himself that this is heaven for a bookworm like him. He practically lived in the library back in his previous life. So this magical skill feels like it was designed specifically for him. Now, he can't stop imagining the possibility of obtaining even more magical skill books and eventually becoming stronger. He is so absorbed in his reading that his librarian decides to explain the limits of the magical skills he can acquire later, since it is obvious that he isn't listening to her anymore. Eventually, he reaches the final chapter of the last book. Our protagonist doesn't just finish the massive texts in record time. He effortlessly comprehends both magical skills perfectly. With that, he finally returns to the real world. His two bullies are still standing there, completely confused about why their magic isn't working. Meanwhile, Koki thinks this is incredible, and just as his librarian told him, time really did freeze while he was inside. Now then, he activates Iwashida's gravity manipulation skill. Immediately, the two bullies experience zero gravity, looking absolutely terrified as they float helplessly in the air. Looking at them, our protagonist admits that in the past he was envious of their abilities. The reason is simple. Despite possessing such powerful skills, they have absolutely no imagination when it comes to using them properly, saying that he deactivates the skill, causing them to experience something like skydiving without a parachute. However, he manages to save them from hitting the ground, though not without successfully traumatizing them. The poor bully even wets himself. Now using the green-haired guy's magic, Koki traps both of them and suspends them in the air while they swear and curse at him, accusing him of stealing their skills and claiming that there is nothing special about him. In response, our protagonist tells them to shut up. He declares that he has finally awakened his own skill. Thanks to that, he understands their abilities and can use them far better than they could ever imagine. After draining them with the vines, our protagonist can only sigh. Such useful skills are truly wasted on people like them. He then silently thanks his sister. After all, without her mana and sacrifice, he would never have made it this far. Now, if he wants to repay her and protect her, he needs to grow stronger. He needs to become strong enough to protect the world that those fake heroes couldn't. Unfortunately for him, the seventh hero happens to overhear his declaration. With a fake cheerful expression, the hero asks who exactly our protagonist is calling a false hero. Our protagonist never expected Akari Leo to show up at his school, so he immediately asks why he is here. The man explains that he just happens to be passing by when he senses some unusual mana. Curious, he decides to investigate, only to discover that one of his biggest anti-fans is responsible. Before our protagonist can clear up the misunderstanding, Akari Leo suddenly pulls out his phone and starts live-streaming the entire thing. His plan is to publicly humiliate Koki and live-stream his apology for the entire world to see. This makes our protagonist extremely furious as he clenches his fists. After all, this is the very bastard who fled and pushed his sister toward the monster to shield himself before escaping. Remembering everything that happened, our protagonist refuses to back down. So instead of apologizing, he bluntly declares that all of them are fake heroes, not just Akari Leo. The moment those words leave his mouth, he realizes what he has just done. Akari Leo immediately becomes furious. He demands to know if Koki is seriously trying to pick a fight with him. Becoming furious, Akari unleashes his aura. Koki is suddenly shocked that the man is actually willing to go this far. So much for being one of the 7 heroes. Just as things seem grim for our protagonist, 2 girls suddenly appear and become excited the moment they see Akari. The girls are obviously his fans, and one of them even asks for his autograph. Irritated by the interruption, Akari calls it a pain. He walks away, but not before telling our protagonist how lucky he is, and warning him that there will not be a next time. Meanwhile, Koki simply watches his interactions with the girls. He admits that the guy is really powerful. He can tell just from his aura alone. If those girls had not shown up when they did, something bad would definitely have happened to him before he could copy Akari's skill. Suddenly, a fireball is sent flying his way. The caster comes running toward him while apologizing. She asks if he is okay, and Kuki is surprised to see Kanai Momo. The girl happens to possess top-tier magic, just like his sister. She is also a student in the special advancement class and a future certified mage. Certified mages are elites specifically chosen through an extremely difficult examination held by the Ministry of Magic once every 4 years. The reason is simple. Certified mages are responsible for official missions such as monster subjugation and saving lives. Because of the difficulty of the exam, the passing rate is less than 1%. Anyway, the two of them walk down the hallway when Kanai suddenly brings up the ongoing rumor about him beating up his bullies. Our protagonist casually confirms it. This puzzles her slightly because she remembers that he had no mana and could not use magic before. In response, he reveals that he recently awakened his magical skill. Nonetheless, Kanai admits that she really likes the fact that he finally put those 2 idiots in their place. Seeing her reaction, Koki admits to himself that she is a little strange, but she is a good person. Back when he was still in school, she was the only person who ever talked to him. Because of this, he casually asks her what she thinks about the 7 heroes. Kanai confidently replies that her answer is obvious. She is aiming for the top, hoping to become the strongest mage and eventually a hero. Koki pretty much expects that answer. Even if he tells her the truth, there is no way she would believe him. Just then, Kanai remembers something. She suggests that he measure his magic power again, now that he has finally awakened his magical skill. Judging from his reaction, he obviously has no idea what she is talking about. In the next scene, she takes him to the special training room specifically reserved for special advancement class students. She points to the device in front of them and explains that it is a magic power measurement device. She further explains how it works. Once activated, they will enter a virtual world where they have to kill monsters. At the same time, the device automatically measures their magic power. Kuki admits that it is impressive, so Kanai adds that she also wants to test herself for the upcoming certified mage examination. Hearing that, Kuki thinks to himself that he needs to grow stronger and become someone people can rely on. In simple terms, he needs to take the exam too. But at that moment, a teacher suddenly screams at them, demanding to know what they are doing. He immediately scolds Kanai, reminding her that only students from the special advancement class are allowed inside the training room, and that she cannot simply enter without permission. Kanai lowers her head and apologizes profusely. At that moment, Koki suddenly speaks up, requesting permission and declaring that he wants to take the certified mage examination. The man remembers him as the kid who ranked dead last in the magic assessment test, so he naturally wonders why Koki suddenly wants to take the exam. Seeing the man's doubtful expression, Koki tries to convince him. Unsurprisingly, Kanai chimes in to help, suggesting that there is no harm in letting Koki take the test. She points out that she is here to get tested herself as well, since she is currently the top student in the special advancement class. The teacher can only agree. Just like that, the device is activated, and the two of them are transported to a different space. Seeing Kuki's puzzled expression, Kanai explains that although the place is virtual, it is a perfect model of the real thing. She calls it a whole. However, they can return to reality at any time using the safety device. When Kanai asks the teacher what level of monster he is giving them, he tells them from outside that it is an E-rank monster. The moment they see a bird-like monster flying toward them, Kanai once again reminds Koki that attacking it will automatically measure their magic power. Activating her flames, she decides to go first. Her attack lands squarely on the bird. Strangely, nothing happens. Normally, an E-rank monster should be killed with a single hit, but then the bird monster reveals that it is actually an A-rank monster. Kanai stares at it in confusion, but Koki immediately realizes that something is wrong. Despite his warning, Kanai becomes excited and launches several fireballs at the monster. The attacks cause no damage because the monster is simply far beyond their level. Meanwhile, Kanai manages to create some distance between herself and the monster the moment it attacks her. Seeing the situation quickly getting out of control, she immediately tells the teacher to initiate the emergency exit. Outside, the teacher reports that he is trying, but unfortunately something is wrong with the machine. In other words, the two of them are stuck inside. A moment later, Kanai is lying on the ground, having already suffered an injury. She wonders aloud what they can do now. The teacher then reminds them that this is a hole like any other. In other words, if the two of them want to escape, they have no choice but to take down the monster. The A-rank bird monster begins descending like a fighter jet. Kanai breaks into a cold sweat as she realizes she cannot move, but at that moment our protagonist manages to pull her out of danger. Both of them float safely in the air as Koki checks on her, asking if she is okay. She is too stunned to respond and instead wonders how he is using Earth attribute magic. Suddenly, the monster changes direction and begins heading straight toward them. When Koki mentions that they should find a way to defeat the monster, Kanai immediately shouts, asking how he can even think of something that impossible. But at that very moment, the world suddenly freezes and our protagonist is pulled into his mental space. His librarian immediately informs him that she knows he is facing a tough opponent, so she specifically brought him here to show him how he can defeat it. It is common knowledge that he can use any skill he reads from the skill books he acquires, but she reveals something even more important. He can actually combine several skills into one. It will cost more mana, but the result will be much stronger and more effective. Time resumes. Kanai immediately asks if Koki is thinking of using his own magic when her previous spells had no effect, but the moment she notices a new rune appearing in his hand, she freezes in shock. Without wasting any more time, our protagonist uses his bind skill to activate gravity manipulation. Thanks to the effect of the bind skill, the earth attribute becomes several times stronger. Once that happens, he immediately switches to wood style. As expected, stronger vines erupt from the ground and wrap around the A-rank monster. The bird monster does not even have time to react before the vines crush it, killing it with ease. And just like that, the bird is defeated and slowly begins to disintegrate. A moment later, Koki lands safely with Kanai, though he admits that the drain on his mana is much greater than he imagined. Meanwhile, Kanai is still in shock, desperately trying to understand how he managed to one-shot an A-rank monster. And that is not even the craziest part. Kuki is the first person she has ever seen use bind magic, because yeah, in their world, Mages normally have only one attribute. Meanwhile, this guy is casually combining multiple attributes like it is nothing. Bro went from overpowered to please nerf him in record time. Anyway, another student from the special advancement class enters the training hall. The yellow-haired guy is Seiko Yuichi, and he happens to be the one who set the entire incident in motion after hearing our protagonist tell the teacher that he was going to take the certified Mage's exam. So when Seiko sees that nothing happened and the virtual space is returning to normal, he is completely shocked. Meanwhile, the teacher rushes forward to check on the students. The moment he learns that both Koki and Kanai are fine, he is stunned when Kanai tells him that our protagonist is the one who defeated the monster. The teacher immediately checks the device. Kanai's result shows that she is a fire mage with a mana score of 2630. But when he checks Koki's results, his attributes are listed as unknown, while his mana reading simply shows an error. The teacher thinks that our protagonist must be on an entirely different level, and this is the first time he has ever seen anything like this. While he is lost in thought, Koki suddenly spots Seiko. He bluntly asks if the kid is the one who rigged the device. The reason for his suspicion is Seiko's lightning magic. His lightning attribute allows him to interact with electronic devices, almost like an electronic mage. Knowing this, Kanai becomes furious. She gets right in Seiko's face, grabs him by the tie, and demands an explanation. Seeing Seiko stutter and claim that he does not know what happened, Koki calmly suggests that the kid do what is best for everyone and fix the device before someone gets hurt in the future. The moment Seiko activates his lightning rune, everything becomes obvious. Koki deliberately used a manipulative tactic to make the idiot willing to reveal himself without realizing it. But more importantly, this gives Koki the perfect opportunity to observe Seiko's skill. Predictably, he hears a mental confirmation from the system. He has successfully copied the skill. Meanwhile, Seiko is about to make an excuse and leave when the teacher immediately stops him. After all, our protagonist has not explained what went wrong. So how did Seiko know exactly what needed to be fixed? Before Seiko can say anything, the teacher immediately drags him to the faculty. From the teacher's expression, it is obvious that once he confirms what he already suspects, Seiko is completely finished. As they leave, the teacher cannot help but raise an eyebrow at Koki. Clearly, the man is curious about this kid, who suddenly awakened and proceeded to defeat an A-rank monster. We skip forward 30 days remain until the certified mage's exam. At the same time, the very same instructor stands beside our protagonist and announces that Koki will officially be joining the special advancement class. With that said, Koki properly introduces himself to the class. The moment the students realize who he is, they remember the bullies he dealt with earlier. Then, out of curiosity, a girl asks him who his favorite hero is. Koki clearly does not expect that question. His reaction surprises the students because everyone in the class has a hero they look up to as a role model. Once again, Koki is reminded of just how wrong everything is, especially knowing what is going to happen in the future. The next moment, our protagonist stuns the entire class by revealing that he does not have a favorite hero. Some of the students are completely baffled. Instead of simply leaving it at that, Koki launches into a passionate speech, reminding them why they wanted to become certified mages in the first place. Even Kanai is stunned as she listens to him explain that, in the end, they can only depend on themselves. Koki tells everyone that he wants to become a certified mage and grow several times stronger than any hero so that he can protect people and save the world. Unfortunately for him, a student secretly records his entire speech. The student uploads the recording online with a caption. Within minutes, the comments begin pouring in. The post does not just spread throughout the magic school. Our protagonist literally goes viral online. The video spreads so far that it eventually reaches the feed of the second hero. Seeing his students' reactions, the teacher quickly steps in and interrupts his speech, reminding them that the exam is only a month away. And just like that, our protagonist becomes the center of attention, but unfortunately, it is not the kind of attention he wants. Later, outside the classroom, the special advancement class teacher talks to someone over the phone. The topic is obviously our protagonist, the kid who suddenly awakened his magic skill, only for the magic device to fail to record his mana. At first, the teacher assumes it is an error, but the device actually displays an error message because Koki's magic power is outrageously high. The man on the other end of the call happens to be the second hero, Jumon Seijiro. He listens silently as the teacher reports everything, including Koki's strange statements about the heroes after hearing everything. Seijiro gives a faint smirk and says he understands. He then suggests giving Koki a letter of recommendation so he can take the certified mage examination. After hanging up, Seijiro turns to the other person in the room and asks what he thinks. That man happens to be the #1 hero, Sage Tetsu. Tetsu simply shrugs. As he leaves, he says he does not care what ideology other people have. However, he notices something else. Chuckling to himself, Seijiro remarks that the man is as cold as ever. Meanwhile, we shift back to our protagonist, who is mentally going over all the choices that have led him to this point. He never imagined that he would accidentally blurt everything out like that. Now, he is trending all over social media, and the rumors surrounding him at school are getting really bad. In his previous life, Koki was a huge fan of the heroes. In other words, he knows from personal experience that anyone who talks trash about them is practically sentenced to social death. Just then, a fireball suddenly heads straight for him. but he manages to dodge it. Of course, the person responsible is none other than Kanai, who casually asks why he looks so gloomy. Without bothering to ask for permission, she drops down beside him and admits that she finds Koki really interesting. She adds that his comments about the 7 heroes made her realize something. There is no guarantee that the heroes can actually save the world. Even so, there is still no proof that the world will really end in 5 years. Kanai falls silent for a moment. Kuki, however, seriously confirms that the world will indeed end. He then reveals the real reason he wants to become a certified mage. It is not simply to become stronger. He wants people to recognize his strength because once they do, they will naturally be more willing to trust him. Well, if that is the case, Kanai insists that he has to do well in the exams. Koki smiles, showing that he intends to do exactly that. The two then start arguing over who is going to treat the other to lunch. Anyway, the next scene takes us back to the hospital. Koki has naturally come to check on his sister. Although she remains unconscious, he still tells her that he is going to take the certified mage examination. He then swears to give it everything he has. After all, this is his only chance. A month later, the next scene takes us to the Ministry of Magic. Of course, the moment our protagonist steps inside, everyone begins whispering and mocking him as the guy who talked trash about the heroes online. But at that moment, someone places a hand on his shoulder. Smiling reassuringly, Kanai reminds him of their objective: to do well in the exams. Her words help him come to his senses. The first part of the exam is a written test, and Kanai is obviously doing her best to answer every question, unlike someone who has a better idea. Instead of killing himself trying to answer all the questions, our protagonist simply cheats. So when the results are announced, Kanai is naturally shocked by Koki's performance. He easily secures 3rd place. She assumes Koki must be amazed by his result. Although Kanai does not get the rank she imagined, our boy reminds her that what really matters is that she passes the test. After all, the first exam is specifically designed to eliminate thousands of candidates. Koki notes that the second test involves a practical exam. Fortunately, during the month leading up to the examination, he spends a great deal of time training with his bend skill. In simple terms, the second test should be a piece of cake for him, as long as nothing goes wrong. The second test takes place inside a massive training room. As luck would have it, Koki and Kanai end up in the same group. Meanwhile, the instructor explains the rules. The test is essentially a battle royale involving 100 participants where everyone must fight to survive. The battle takes place inside a virtual space, and participants are automatically eliminated once the system determines that they have taken excessive damage. Students earn 10 points for every opponent they defeat. When the time limit expires, the candidates with the highest scores will advance to the 3rd stage of the exam. That final condition immediately puts everyone on edge. Without wasting any more time, the instructor snaps his fingers. Suddenly, Koki finds himself standing in the middle of a forest. An announcement echoes through the virtual space, informing him that the time limit is 15 minutes. The very next second after the announcement, Kanai immediately rushes into battle like a madwoman. Using her magic, she manages to take down multiple students in record time. Meanwhile, Koki silently watches her, thinking that she is always lively whenever fighting is involved. But at that moment, 3 students from another magic school spot him, and immediately see him as an easy target. Koki already expects this since he is rumored to be the kid who only recently awakened his magic. Naturally, everyone assumes he is weak. One of the students immediately launches a magic attack, pulling Koki from his thoughts. Koki easily dodges every attack. To him, their movements are practically happening in slow motion. Furious, the girl in the group uses smokescreen magic, but even that has no effect on Koki because of the enormous difference in their mana. The last student decides to rely on brute force, encasing his fist in iron magic before charging at Koki. To his surprise, Koki casually stops the attack with one hand. At the same time, he hears a system notification informing him that he has successfully acquired all 3 skills. Koki cannot help but thank them for the skills. With a grin, he activates his vine magic. Suddenly, a monster emerges from the ground, horrifying the 3 students. The monster devours all 3 of them, successfully eliminating them from the test. On the other side, Koki's teacher watches the battle from outside, alongside the second hero. When the hero asks if Koki is the kid his teacher mentioned, the man nods. The second hero admits that Koki's mana is definitely abnormal, but then he suddenly smiles as though he has just remembered something. At that moment, Akari suddenly materializes inside the training ground for the second test. Immediately, an announcement declares that a new rule has been added. Everyone listens as they are told that anyone who manages to land even a single hit on Akari will automatically pass the exam, meaning they no longer need to complete the rest of the test. Even Koki's teacher is stunned because he had no idea about the new rule until this very moment. As the 2 men watch Akari through the monitor, the second hero explains that the entire event is being live-streamed. The purpose is simply to show the world just how strong the 7 heroes are. However, Akari does not share the same noble view. In his mind, he mocks the students as trash, seeing them as nothing more than tools to help him gain more views on his video. Unaware of his intentions, the students believe they can turn the situation around if they launch an attack together. Akari responds by releasing his magic, easily sending them flying while remarking that he is not going to make things that easy for them. But then, he notices someone who has managed to remain standing. Vine magic wraps around Kuki, allowing him to withstand the attack. The sight immediately reminds Akari of his last encounter with Kuki. It makes him furious, but at the same time, he feels excited. Since the kid has managed to withstand his attack using vine magic, Akari finally has a reason to stop holding back. The remaining students are suddenly blocked out, leaving only Kuki and Akari alone. With that out of the way, Akari declares that he is going to teach Kuki a lesson by showing him the enormous difference between heaven and earth. This time, Kuki suffers damage despite using his vines to protect himself. Unfortunately for Akari, Kanai witnesses what he has just done, making him realize his mistake. Kanai immediately confronts him, asking if that was really necessary. She reminds him that he is a hero and that students genuinely look up to people like him. In response, Akari attacks her for daring to lecture him. Kanai fights back with her magic while asking if this is what being a hero is supposed to mean. Akari, however, simply mocks her fire magic, calling it pathetic. His own wind magic easily cuts through her magic, striking her and sending her crashing to the ground. Koki freezes as he watches her fall. The scene reminds him of his previous life, when that bastard pushed his sister aside and used her as a shield against a monster during the end of the world. His fists clench as pure rage begins to consume him. Meanwhile, Akari prepares to finish Kanai off, arrogantly claiming that magical skills are nothing more than a gotcha pull. According to him, Kanai simply pulled trash, while he was lucky enough to win the genetic lottery. But before he can finish her, Koki suddenly steps between them. Using his bind skill, he combines both smokescreen magic and vine magic. Akari is stunned. More importantly, he senses that Koki's mana has increased. Kuki uses the smokescreen to blind Akari, then follows up with his vines, catching the hero completely off guard. The attack lands, leaving a single scratch across Akari's face. Meanwhile, Kanai watches in disbelief. Unable to understand how Koki can bind smokescreen magic and vine magic together, she begins to wonder just how powerful Koki really is. Akari, however, becomes absolutely furious after seeing the scar on his face. He threatens to kill Kuki. Then, activating his truth skill, Akari summons a mystical beast. Our protagonist watches in shock as Akira's summoned beast turns out to be several times stronger than the A-rank monster he and Kanai faced inside the testing device. Meanwhile, Akira simply smirks at Koki's reaction. He casually reveals that his summoned beast is a mystical type, and his magic skill is so rare that it is possessed by less than 1% of mages. With that, he orders his beast, Fuma, to attack. The monster lets out a terrifying roar before sending countless wind blades flying toward Koki. The wind blades strike him, leaving him injured and forcing him to drop to his knees. Akira, on the other hand, is actually impressed that Koki manages to survive the attack. Unfortunately, the man isn't in the mood to prolong the fight, so he decides to finish Koki immediately. Kanai quickly tells Koki to run. However, the monster has already lunged at him. Just as it seems like his life is about to flash before his eyes, Koki suddenly finds himself inside his mental space. This time, his librarian insists that now is the perfect opportunity to try the other application of the bind skill she once told him about. To understand what is happening, we need to go back 1 month during Koki's training for the certified mage exams. Back then, his librarian pointed out how her master used bind magic in a follow-up process she called the addition of magic. Kuki becomes thoughtful when she introduces the concept of multiplying magic. Unlike addition, multiplication is far more effective because it can create an entirely new form of magic. When he thinks about it, the concept makes perfect sense. After all, multiplying the same number in mathematics produces a much higher result than simply adding it repeatedly. With this realization, Kuki understands that he has discovered another way to become even stronger. His librarian explains that he already has enough mana to execute the process, although she admits it will be difficult. She also isn't sure whether he will actually need it during the exam, but it is better to be safe than sorry. Of course, Koki agrees, believing he can easily handle it before the exams. Hearing his confidence brings a smile to his librarian's face. She then begins guiding him through the process step by step. This time, Koki needs to read both skill books simultaneously and use his imagination to create a new magic by combining the two skills. Next, he closes his eyes and concentrates, determined to give it a try. In the next moment, he shouts like some kind of Power Ranger. Unfortunately, nothing happens. After several more attempts, Koki eventually drops to the ground in defeat, admitting that the whole thing is useless because nothing is happening. Trying to motivate him, his librarian tells him that this outcome is exactly what she expected. After all, the only beings capable of creating and binding magic together to form an entirely new magic are superhumans or the gods themselves. Back in the present, our protagonist reflects on how he has been practicing the bind magic, yet he still has not made any significant progress. He knows he has to figure something out. Otherwise, both he and Kanai will die here. During the battle, he also successfully manages to copy Momo's skill. Remembering how Akira looked so dismissive and even mocked her skill, Koki becomes furious. According to him, fire attribute magic is simple, but that is exactly what makes it so powerful. Its applications are nearly endless. And speaking of that, he suddenly reaches an enlightenment. Holding both the fire and earth attribute skill books, Koki feels his mind becoming clearer as a crystal-like image begins to form in his mind. The next moment, he returns to reality, now radiating a terrifying red aura. Akira is stunned, unable to understand how the kid suddenly possesses this much power. Kanai, on the other hand, looks excited to see what Kuki is about to do. Activating his rune, Koki combines earth manipulation with fire attribute magic. From the combination, an entirely new spell is born, Meteor Storm. Akira is horrified when actual meteors begin falling from the sky. He immediately orders Fuma to protect him as both he and his summoned beast desperately defend themselves. But the more meteors they block, the more Koki continues sending their way. Then, in the very next moment, a massive explosion erupts. Throughout the entire battle, Koki's teacher and the second hero watch in disbelief, unable to understand how a student could possess such overwhelming power. When the dust finally settles, Akira's summoned beast is down for the count, while Akira himself can barely remain standing. Kuki is also somewhat exhausted, but he still finds the strength to mock Akira, pointing out that the fire magic he called pathetic turns out to be pretty useful after all. Kanai becomes flustered by the unexpected compliment from Kuki, but before she can say anything, he turns his attention back to Akira and starts roasting him instead. Without his summoned beast, the guy is literally useless. How can someone like him even be called a hero who is supposed to save the world? However, Akira has finally had enough. He angrily tells Koki to shut up before declaring that he is one of the chosen. Looking confused, our protagonist asks what the man is even talking about, especially when he calls himself a chosen one. He wonders if such a thing really exists. Akira responds with mocking laughter, clearly amused by Koki's ignorance. According to him, Koki must be an idiot for not knowing something so obvious. Back when Akira was little, both of his parents were prominent, high-ranking mages, and the one thing they constantly instill in their son is that he is a special human being who deserves to have everything he wants. His father even tells him once that he can simply take whatever belongs to others. In simple terms, they are basically raising a monster. The result is obvious. By the age of 6, Akira has already become a troublemaker, looking down on all his peers and treating them like trash that belongs beneath his feet. As if that isn't enough, the universe hands him the winning lottery ticket when he awakens as a summoner, an extremely rare type of mage said to appear only once in a million people. With his incredible talent and an overly blessed life, the kid grows up believing that he has everything. Koki listens to the entire story and wonders if any of this even means anything other than proving that Akira has been a jerk and a man-child since birth. Akira doesn't bother responding to the jab. Instead, he casually pulls out a bottle from nowhere. Meanwhile, the other students watch in silence. Some are beginning to see a completely different side of Akira, while others remain shocked that our protagonist is actually holding his own against a hero. Nonetheless, Akira drinks the entire bottle in one go. He tosses the empty bottle aside and reveals that it is an elixir, the kind of potion an ordinary person would never encounter in their entire life. The potion immediately restores his strength and even doubles his magic power. The sudden change catches our protagonist off guard. Akira then reveals that because his magic power has doubled, the same thing happens to Fuma. Seeing Koki frozen in place, Akira asks what he can possibly do now that he is already exhausted while they have fully recovered and are twice as strong as before. Witnessing the situation, Kanai once again suggests that their protagonist run. But with murder in his eyes, Akira tells her that it is already too late. He orders his beast to rip our protagonist to shreds. Unfortunately for him, the beast doesn't respond. Even our protagonist looks confused when Akira's summon does nothing. Meanwhile, Akira flies into a rage, demanding to know why Fuma is just standing there doing nothing. Throwing a tantrum, he kicks his own summon while calling it a dog that is supposed to obey its master. Eventually, the monster becomes fed up with this childish man, and just like that, it lets out a roar of defiance toward its master, leaving Akira completely shocked. The man freezes, unable to understand how a beast that is supposed to obey him could suddenly defy him. As if to explain what is happening, Koki activates his rune, revealing that he copied Akira's rare summoning and wind magic. Seeing and hearing this for the first time, Akira is naturally confused and baffled. So, our protagonist explains that Fuma is a mystical beast, the only one of its kind in this world. Since there are now 2 summoners, the one who can control it is the person with the strongest connection to the beast. In other words, our protagonist is currently the one in control. Akira thinks about this for a moment before realizing that Kuki has just admitted to copying his skill. Despite that, he reminds Fuma of the long bond they have shared, insisting that the beast should naturally listen to him. In response, our protagonist drops another bombshell. He reveals that Fuma no longer trusts him. The remark catches Akira completely by surprise. Kuki continues, explaining that immediately after copying Akira's skill, he did not have an instant connection with Fuma. Unfortunately for Akira, however, the moment the 2 summoners were connected to the same beast, Fuma took one look at him, became fed up, and switched its loyalty. Now, the poor guy can only watch as Fuma calmly walks over to our protagonist's side. Kuki reminds him that until now, Akira has treated everyone around him like tools, that includes his own summon. But Fuma is a living creature just like anyone else. It has finally become fed up with being treated that way and has every right to leave him. Hearing that, Akira continues shouting at Fuma, desperately ordering it to come back. Once again, our protagonist reminds him that he should be grateful. After all, Akira had unknowingly given Fuma twice the mana it normally had. And now, that same beast is about to use all that power against its former master. In the next moment, Akira is struck by Fuma's roar. One attack is all it takes. The seventh hero crashes to the ground. Even then, his arrogance remains intact and he immediately prepares to threaten our protagonist. But in that instant, Koki activates his gravity manipulation magic. Roaring at him, he demands that the bastard apologize to his sister. Akira feels his entire body suddenly become as heavy as a mountain. Confused, he asks what Koki is even talking about. But remembering what that bastard did to his sister before his regression only makes Koki even more furious. With his anger rising, he increases the pressure of his gravity magic and forces Akira's head toward the ground. Akira's head slams against the ground. The pressure is so overwhelming that he loses consciousness, and immediately after that, Akira is eliminated from the competition. Kanai, who is apparently still lying on the ground, is left completely shocked by what he has just witnessed. The other students are equally stunned. No one can believe what just happened. A single student has defeated the seventh hero all by himself. In the very next scene, our protagonist finds himself waking up in a hospital bed. The first person he sees is Kanai, who looks worried sick about him. The reason soon becomes clear. He has been unconscious for an entire week, and according to the medical report, he collapsed due to mana exhaustion. He is about to thank Kanai for looking after him when she suddenly grabs his hand. She insists that she should be the one thanking him for protecting her. Our protagonist becomes flustered by her bright reaction, unsure how to respond. But then he suddenly jolts upright as he remembers the exams. Kanai quickly assures him that they passed. However, she becomes puzzled when she realizes that our protagonist has misunderstood her. Even though he collapsed and was unable to continue with the rest of the exam, he still passed. And with that, the next scene takes us to the Ministry of Magic. Not only has Koki passed the Certified Mage exam, but he also happens to be the top-ranking student. Because of this, the students immediately begin talking about him. Whispers spread throughout the hall about how he single-handedly defeated one of the heroes. As Koki listens, he notices that the students' opinions of the heroes are beginning to change. Some even start wondering whether the heroes can really save the world as the prophecy claims. Hearing this, our protagonist admits to himself that this is exactly what he wanted. He wants people to stop blindly relying on the heroes and start believing in their own strength. Anyway, the top certified mage and the #1 hero, Sage Tetsu, soon appears to address the newly certified mages. The moment the students see him, some openly comment on whether he is really strong. One even jokes that if he is as weak as Akira, Koki might be able to wipe the floor with him. Hearing the whispers, Sage Tetsu calmly tells everyone to be silent. His words alone are enough to silence the entire hall. At the same time, ice begins spreading across the building. The man coldly turns toward the group that had been running their mouths and trash-talking him. He immediately reminds them of what they have signed up for. The holes they will enter are extremely dangerous, and even their powerful mana will mean nothing inside them. In other words, they need to focus on becoming stronger. He continues his speech, making one thing perfectly clear. A certified mage who refuses to grow stronger has no place in the Ministry of Magic. Throughout the entire speech, our protagonist simply stares at him. He cannot help but wonder if this is what it truly means to be the #1 hero. Later that day, Koki notices that Momo looks unusually excited after seeing the #1 hero in person. She calmly admits that it is true. In fact, Sage Tetsu is the very reason she wanted to become a certified mage and a hero in the first place. It turns out that when Momo was little, she accidentally fell into a hole. Just as she was about to be devoured by the monsters inside, they were instantly encased in ice. Sage Tetsu had arrived in the nick of time and saved her. That moment became their first encounter. Momo still remembers it vividly. Also, she remembers him telling her to stop crying and become strong so that she would never have to cry again. Back in the present, our protagonist can understand why Momo looks up to the man so much. It also explains why she dreams of becoming the #1 and strongest mage in the world. Then, Momo turns toward Kuki and asks why he wanted to become a certified mage. He thinks for a moment before giving her the usual answer. He says that he wants to save the world. Hearing this, Momo immediately remembers that Kuki does not believe the heroes can save the world. Then her eyes narrow with curiosity as she casually remarks that he sounds like someone who came from the future. Koki's eyes widen. Seeing his reaction, Momo makes a teasing expression, revealing that she is only joking. She explains that her suspicion comes from the fact that he suddenly awakened his magic and became incredibly strong. However, Koki's expression remains serious. He tells her that it is actually true. He really did come from the future. Momo immediately insists that it must be a joke, but his serious expression makes it obvious that he is not joking. Koki then tells her to listen to him. He recounts everything that happened on the day of his regression, explaining how the world eventually reached its end. After hearing everything, Momo struggles to believe that the 7 heroes were really unable to stop the end of the world. Our protagonist sadly confirms it. Even Sagai Tetsu was unable to stop it. That is why Koki insists on becoming stronger. He also tells her that he intends to fight alongside allies this time. The mention of allies catches Momo by surprise. Because of this, our protagonist finally explains why he decided to reveal his secret to her. Since she is the first and only person he has chosen to trust with the truth, he wants her to become his first ally. Hearing this, Momo accepts without hesitation. Curious, she then wonders why he does not simply tell everyone that he is a regressor. After all, with everything he has already accomplished, surely people would believe him. The mages are still researching regression magic, because it is an ancient form of magic that no one fully understands. If they discover that he has regressed from the future, there is no telling what they might do. More importantly, revealing his secret would put his sister in constant danger. Momo quickly understands his concern. In other words, she agrees that revealing his identity as a regressor would be a bad idea. She then asks what their next move should be if they want to prevent the end of the world. Our protagonist states the obvious. Now that they are finally certified mages, there is only one thing left to do. They need to become stronger, just as Sage Tetsu said. And so, in the very next scene, our protagonist and Momo find themselves assigned to the same squad. Together, they are about to embark on their very first mission as certified mages. The group, accompanied by 2 senior mages, stands in front of a massive hole. Before entering, one of the men turns to them and asks them to confirm whether this is their first time entering a hole. Both students confirm that it is. Although Koki is already somewhat familiar with holes through his training, this is still his first time entering a real one, so it is only natural for him to feel a little nervous. As if reading his thoughts, one of the men assures them that everything will be fine. After all, the hole in front of them is only a beginner-level hole. All they have to do is stay behind the senior mages. Hearing that, Kuki and Momo nod in understanding. The 2 senior mages immediately take the lead and jump into the hole. Kuki and Momo follow closely behind. Normally, rookie certified mages begin their monster subjugation missions by accompanying senior certified mages into low-rank dungeons. In this particular dungeon, only monsters ranging from E rank to C rank appear. The senior mages are responsible for doing the actual fighting, while the rookies act as spectators and slowly gain experience by observing them. However, one of the senior mages soon complains that there are too many monsters and that a few of them have managed to slip past. The man immediately gives Koki and Momo a heads up, seemingly curious to see how the 2 rookies will handle them. Koki activates his vine magic while Momo, as usual, activates her fire magic. The 2 effortlessly deal with the approaching monsters. Seeing this, the senior mage praises them, admitting that the kids are not bad. However, Koki calmly tells him that he is not done yet. His companion admires his spirit but insists that he slow down. With enough time, the man explains, he will gain plenty of experience and eventually be able to participate in more important battles. Hearing that, Koki decides to prove himself. He tells them to watch closely. Using his bind magic, he effortlessly wipes out multiple monsters at once. The group is impressed. Momo, in particular, realizes something. Koki has just created another magic spell. Immediately after killing the monsters, Koki notices something unusual. It turns out that mages who kill monsters inside a dungeon absorb their mana, almost like gaining experience. However, Koki quickly realizes that, as expected from a low-rank dungeon, the amount of experience gained is far too small for him. Once a dungeon is completely cleared, the hole naturally closes after everyone exits. Later, the senior mages ask the 2 rookies about their experience during their first mission. Momo admits that she was nervous at first, but she is also excited that she finally got to kill a monster by herself. When she asks Kuki if he feels the same way, everyone is caught off guard by his answer. He suddenly demands to challenge a high-rank hole. Momo gasps in surprise. Thinking quickly, one of the senior mages compliments Koki's resolve. However, he immediately adds that challenging a high-rank dungeon is not that simple. Not only are the monsters much stronger, but teamwork and strategy become extremely important. Even if Koki is strong, raw power alone will not be enough. Before Koki can respond, the next scene takes us to a cafe. Koki thinks about what the senior mage told him and understands their reasoning. However, if he is truly going to stop the end of the world, he will need more than just copied skills. Just then, Momo explains that, although certified mages are already considered to be above ordinary members of society, they still have ranks among themselves. Kuki replies that he already knows that. This makes Momo wonder why he seems to be in such a hurry, so Kuki finally explains the situation to her. He tells her exactly how much time remains before the end of the world and explains that he needs to accomplish several things before then. The first is recruiting allies just like he recruited her. The second is becoming so strong and influential that everyone recognizes him as a symbol of hope. Momo immediately understands his reasoning. If people trust him, it will be much easier for him to convince them that the 7 heroes cannot save the world. There is also something else he needs to accomplish. Koki needs to copy important skills, such as defensive and healing magic. Those abilities will be crucial when the end of the world arrives. With them, he can increase his chances of surviving and defeating the monsters that will eventually emerge. This is why he is so frustrated. To accomplish all of this, he needs to start challenging high-rank holes in dungeons as quickly as possible. But with things progressing at their current pace, he knows he will never become strong enough in time. Just then, Momo suddenly gets an idea. Although there are ranks among certified mages, she explains that those who demonstrate exceptional potential have another opportunity. They can skip ranks entirely and become heroes, and heroes are considered SS rank mages. Koki is genuinely surprised by this information. Momo, meanwhile, is shocked that he does not know something so basic. Koki immediately begins thinking, if becoming a hero is the fastest way to gain access to stronger opponents in higher-ranked dungeons, then there's only one thing he needs to do. He needs to gain recognition from the heroes themselves. And so, the next scene takes us to a private meeting involving the 7 heroes, or rather, the 6 heroes currently present. The 5th hero, Ashiya Hikaru, wonders aloud why the meeting was called. The 2nd hero reminds everyone that they are here to discuss Koki. The 4th hero, Kyugi Arashiho, remembers him as the student who defeated Akira. The 2nd hero agrees, pointing out that Koki used 2 completely different skills during his battle with Akira. Igo Hika, the 3rd hero, immediately wonders if that means Koki possesses multiple skills. The 2nd hero confirms it. However, he admits that he has no idea how such a thing is even possible. Meanwhile, the 6th hero, Susaki Irori, appears visibly annoyed by the entire meeting. With the discussion reaching a dead end, everyone eventually turns toward the strongest hero of them all, the number 1 hero, Sage Tetsu. They wait for his opinion about Koki, but he does not respond. Instead, the atmosphere suddenly changes. Sage Tetsu becomes alert, as if he has sensed something dangerous approaching. And in that exact moment, Koki suddenly appears inside the room. The entire group of heroes is shocked. Sage Tetsu, however, remains completely calm. Kyugi Arashiho immediately demands to know how Koki managed to bypass their security. In response, our protagonist simply shows them his lightning rune. Ashiya Hikaru is surprised to see the rune. Igo Hika, meanwhile, demands to know why Koki has come here. Our protagonist boldly answers. He has come to ask them for a favor. He wants them to make him the 7th hero. 4th hero Kyugi Arashiho almost becomes furious after hearing Koki's statement. Unlike the 4th hero, the 2nd hero remains calm and asks whether Koki really thinks that beating Akira is enough to take the 7th hero position from him. Just then, the 5th hero, Ashiya Hikaru, remembers something and reminds Koki that he was the one who said the 7th heroes could not save the world. So according to him, it makes no sense for Koki to suddenly want to become a hero. Getting straight to the point, Koki explains that he wants to become a hero so he can challenge higher-ranked dungeons without any restrictions. Hearing this, the 2nd hero realizes that Koki is talking about the rank skipping system. Normally, mages start at C rank and gradually get promoted as they grow stronger. However, Sage Tetsu was so powerful during his time that he managed to rise from C rank to S rank in less than 6 months. He eventually became the strongest mage in the world and took the number 1 position among the heroes. Hearing this, Koki confidently argues that he can grow stronger as well. Fed up and unable to hold back his anger, 4th hero Kyugi Arashiho shouts at him, saying that just because he defeated Akira does not give him the right to become arrogant and full of himself. He reminds Koki that certified mages are promoted over time, and the difficulty of the dungeons naturally increases along with their rank. The 4th hero is even about to teach Koki a lesson by using his magic skill, but the 2nd hero immediately stops him. He calmly reminds everyone that Koki managed to tame Akira's beast. He suspects this happened because Koki's magic skill allows him to copy other people's skills. Koki immediately tightens his expression upon hearing this. Even so, the 4th hero refuses to believe that a magic skill like that could even exist. However, the other heroes begin thinking about it and come to the same conclusion. If Koki really can copy their skills, then showing him their abilities would be a terrible idea. Everyone seems concerned except the 6th hero, who simply wants the meeting to end so she can go home. Because of this, the 2nd hero admits that he understands Koki's intentions, but unfortunately today is not a good day to discuss the matter any further. With that, Koki is dismissed. Internally, Koki acknowledges how cunning the 2nd hero is. The old man is truly something else. Koki had intentionally come here hoping to copy at least one of the hero's skills, but thankfully he came prepared for a situation like this. Koki suddenly begins releasing an incredible amount of mana. The heroes stare at him in confusion, unable to understand what he is doing. His mana continues to intensify, making the 4th hero wonder aloud if Koki is planning to attack them. But to everyone's surprise, Koki lowers his head. He calmly says that he will take their words to heart and reflect on his actions while continuing to train and become stronger. He even personally thanks the 4th hero. Koki is taken aback. Before the man can say anything else, the scene shifts as Koki leaves the meeting room. Just then, Kyugi Arashiho suddenly stops him. Seeing this, Koki becomes satisfied because the big guy has taken the bait. It turns out that one of Kyugi's weaknesses is his soft spot for polite underclassmen. Koki immediately tries to flatter him, while internally admitting that this is definitely not his style. But at this point, he has no other choice. Changing the subject, Kyugi asks why Koki wants to become stronger so desperately. Taking advantage of Kyugi's weakness, Koki pretends to become saddened before revealing that his sister is currently unconscious in the hospital. As expected, Kyugi is deeply moved when Koki explains that he wants to become a hero so he can surprise his sister the moment she wakes up. This works because the big man has a serious soft spot for family love. Getting fired up, Kyugi declares that he will personally train Koki and make sure he becomes stronger. The next scene takes us to the Ministry of Magic Grand Arena. Inside, Kyugi informs our protagonist about his skill, explaining that his magic allows him to create an absolute barrier. Koki already knows this because he is familiar with all the magic skills possessed by the 7 heroes. In fact, Kyugi's skill is the one he wanted the most. The reason is simple. If he learns the barrier skill, it will become much easier for him to create barriers and protect people. Anyway, Kyugi activates his rune and uses his magic skill. Immediately, a massive, thick concrete wall rises from the ground. He calls it the Wall of Resolve. Kyugi then tells Koki to try attacking it. Our protagonist activates the iron magic he copied from one of the students during the certified mage exam. With that, he charges forward with his fist covered in iron and punches the wall. The moment his fist makes contact, Koki notices that something is wrong. In the very next second, he is sent flying. Kyugi suddenly appears behind him and catches him while explaining the concept behind his Wall of Resolve. It turns out that the barrier surrounding the wall redirects the same amount of force used against it back at the attacker. However, Kyugi admits that the wall can still be broken. He then makes a deal with Koki. As the wall's name suggests, it is meant to test his resolve. If Koki manages to break it, Kyugi promises to take him on an S-rank dungeon subjugation and officially make him a member of his squad. Knowing this is an offer he cannot pass up, Koki activates his Bin skill. He summons Fuma, but instead of having the beast use wind magic, he changes its attribute to fire. Seeing this, Kyugi is naturally stunned. He realizes that Koki has somehow fused Akira's beast with another skill. Koki then tells Fuma to go all out. One attack from the mystical beast is all it takes to shatter the Wall of Resolve. And just like that, Kyugi is stunned for the second time. Meanwhile, Koki braces himself, expecting the attack to be reflected back at him. Fortunately, nothing happens. Kyugi explains that the force did not reflect because Koki destroyed the wall with a single attack. However, he admits that this is the first time someone has ever used their full power on the very first attempt during his test. Nonetheless, he praises our protagonist, noting that Koki is clearly built differently from the rest. Once again, Kyugi summons the Wall of Resolve. Turning to Koki, he asks whether he had the chance to copy his skill. Koki nods, being playful. Kyugi admits that although he gave Koki permission to copy his skill, there is no way he can surpass the original. Koki simply smiles, but then Kyugi suddenly becomes serious. He asks whether Koki lacks confidence in the hero's ability to save the world, or if there is another reason he dislikes the Ministry of Magic. Knowing what really happened on the day the world ended, Koki tells him that neither is the case. According to Koki, he has noticed something he failed to see in his previous life. He asks Kyugi if he has ever noticed anything strange about the Ministry of Magic. Koki is in the middle of explaining further when Kyugi is suddenly attacked from behind. No one sees the attack coming. Kyugi coughs up blood as the force of the strike sends shock through the arena. But the most shocking part is the identity of the attacker. The one who just struck Kyugi is none other than the Great Sage himself, the very man who once foretold that the world would come to an end. Koki stares at the man standing at the top of the Ministry of Magic, the very same man who chose the 7 heroes as the ones responsible for saving the world. Naturally, anyone would question why this very same man has just killed one of the heroes who is supposed to save the world. But at that moment, the Great Sage suddenly attacks Koki in the middle of his thoughts. Snapping back to reality, Koki responds by using his barrier magic. Immediately, a wall forms and blocks the attack. Without wasting a second, he activates his vine magic while asking why the Great Sage would do something like killing his own ally. Seeing the vines coming his way, the Great Sage immediately uses his ancient magic skill. His ability to foresee the future allows him to anticipate and dodge the attack with ease. This makes our protagonist realize that he can't hit the Great Sage if the battle continues. Still, Koki can't shake the strange feeling he has. Looking closely, he notices that something about the Great Sage seems unnatural. It almost feels as if the man isn't even real. Then, to our protagonist's absolute shock, the Great Sage suddenly disappears, almost like something straight out of the Matrix. Just like that, the old man gets away. Later, at the Ministry of Magic morgue, Koki approaches Kyugi and apologizes for not being able to save him. This is when our protagonist begins thinking about the Great Sage's prophecy. If the man truly saw the end of the world, then why didn't he see what would happen afterward? Koki thinks about it carefully and reaches a dangerous conclusion. He believes the Great Sage must have already seen that the 7 heroes couldn't save the world. In other words, he intentionally lied about his prophecy. Still, it doesn't make sense that the man would deliberately give them a false prophecy. Then, after checking his phone, Koki sees the location of the Great Sage. Apparently, he secretly tagged the old man during their fight. Naturally, Koki decides to head to that location in order to uncover the truth. Eventually, Koki finds the place where the Great Sage is located. As he enters the facility, our protagonist is stunned by what he sees. The place looks like a laboratory, and several large capsules are scattered throughout the room. Koki wonders why the Great Sage would come to a place like this. He is still trying to understand what is going on when he suddenly senses someone behind him. Unfortunately, the Great Sage is already there. The moment the Great Sage launches a sneak attack, Koki manages to dodge. He immediately grabs a nearby pipe and uses iron magic to reinforce the steel, turning it into a weapon. And just like that, the battle between the two mages begins. The fight is surprisingly even. The reason is simple. During their first clash at the Ministry of Magic, Koki managed to copy the Great Sage's ability to see the future. In other words, the advantage the Great Sage once had is now gone, leaving both mages on equal footing. As the battle continues, Koki demands to know why the Great Sage foresaw the end of the world. He wants to know why the man lied and made everyone believe that the 7 heroes could stop the end of the world. Worse still, if the Great Sage already knew the truth, why did he never do anything to prevent it? Because of the Great Sage's actions, Koki's sister is now trapped in an eternal sleep as a consequence of using regression magic, radiating pure killing intent. Koki swears that he will never forgive him. Eventually, Koki lands a powerful strike, but what he discovers leaves him completely shocked. The Great Sage isn't even human. That finally explains why the mage has remained completely silent throughout the battle. Koki stares at him in disbelief and demands to know what is happening, even asking if the man is actually made of mud. Just then, someone steps into the room and confirms that Koki is absolutely correct. The person is none other than Ashiya Hikaru. He casually reveals that the Great Sage has been dead for a long time. However, Koki wants to know what Ashiya is doing there. In response, Ashiya chuckles softly and asks if Koki is really that slow. Using his mud magic, he explains that he can fill a corpse with mud and control it like a puppet. In other words, the Great Sage has been nothing more than Ashiya's puppet this entire time. Our protagonist is shocked. If that is the case, then Koki wants to know about the prophecy. Ashiya admits that he was the one who created it. He was also the one who made everyone believe that the world was destined to come to an end. This makes Koki call him a bastard. Ashiya then explains that the end of the world is something scientists would eventually discover if they were given enough time. Since he had already predicted it, he simply used the Great Sage as a convenient way to spread the information. Of course, the entire idea of the 7 heroes being the saviors of humanity was also Ashiya's creation. Koki finally realizes the truth. Ashiya created the prophecy and the 7 heroes to put everyone at ease and make humanity lower its guard. Ashiya simply nods and laughs wickedly. He did all of this for one purpose: to ensure that the end of the world would come to pass.